Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 30 Minutes with a Modern Mystic. Hello, Michael.
Hi, here we are again, once again, debating what are we going to talk about.
And for today's topic, we picked making decisions, how to make decisions,
So
or
we,
decision
we
making.
so we did it quickly, didn't we? We made a decision.
It just took us 2 minutes. Let's begin with what are decisions, Michael?
Decisions are when you often close the door in your life on a certain direction. Decision making is, a lot of people put it off. A lot of people ask their best friends, I have a problem, what do you think? And the best friend often ends up making the decision for them. Some people are frightened of making a decision because it might mean they make the wrong decision and then everything goes wrong. So decision making is something that many businesses and companies look for, that quality in a person who can make decisions quickly and comfortably rather than procrastinate a lot and keep putting off making a decision, because I think quite a lot of people are frightened of them. It's something final. This means I've got to live this.
What makes it so difficult for people to make decisions, or what is the difference between people who can make decisions easily and those who can't?
I think they're frightened of the repercussions of their decision. They're frightened of what might come from it. I've never personally had that fear, so I don't have that in-depth side of that. But I've met a lot of people who will just keep putting off making a decision because even on quite ordinary things, it's like they just don't like to make a decision. But there's always somebody around who makes it for them. And I tend to think that husband and wife, a rapid, strong decision maker will often marry an indecisive person because they feel much more secure with that person. And that goes both ways. Plenty of women can make decisions, just as plenty don't find it easy. But I often find they pair up to balance each other out. And I think for a man or woman, if the other one is decisive and can make decisions, it's an attractive quality which they don't personally have. So it adds to their sense of security.
So security has to do with it, definitely.
Definitely, yeah. Like some decisions, when I decided to emigrate, it was just a snap decision. I'd had a conversation on the phone. Things were not going the way I wanted them to go, and I could see they weren't going to go in that direction. And so I said to my wife, hey, let's emigrate. Let's start afresh. Let's have a clean slate and not all this family bickering and squabbling. Let's just emigrate. She said, yes, let's. And that was it. We never looked back. We set the process in going. Well, I mean, that's a decision that has a remarkable effect on the rest of your life. Like
So
you,
so
let's
has
go
it
to America.
Yeah. So has it always been easy for you to make decisions?
Yeah, I think I was too thick to realize the repercussions. I think I was too dense when I was young to sort of think it all the way through.
Yeah,
But no, it
I would
always
agree.
came.
I would agree that mostly for with people who have difficulties making decisions, they overthink it and they put themselves in the shoe of all participants, whoever it is, and then in the end they're so overwhelmed with who might think what about whatever they're going to do that they're just completely overwhelmed.
I was doing a person came here for a for my advice, and nice, lovely guy, but everything overthinking everything, and I realised that my most of my friends don't overthink. One or two of them do, but I realised that it's quite a common thing. And overthinking, you get so lost, you get so completely muddled up, and decision making He definitely didn't like to make decisions because everything was overthought to the point it just became like, oh my God, what do I do? Whereas I never were different, and I just didn't go that way ever.
Is there a difference between overthinking and procrastination?
I think they are kissing cousins, even if they don't hold hands. But overthinking, I don't think, is a deliberate way of procrastinating. Procrastinating is not necessarily based in overthinking, but in just putting it off, putting it off, putting it off, because they don't like to make a decision. So
Right. So
certainly decision making and procrastination there, they live shoulder to shoulder. Some you entertain. I've never been a great procrastinator, but I know people have put things off for years.
I would say that most of decision making problems evolve around the ongoing question of right or wrong. Is this the right decision to make, or the other the right decision to make? And that's why people can make a decision, because they feel like they want to make the right decision, but they don't know which one it is. So I guess the key to decision making lies in looking at this whole image of, is there a right and wrong?
Personally, as far as I'm concerned, no, there isn't, because if you look at the bigger picture from a metaphysical viewpoint, it just shows probabilities, always probabilities. And if the probability is that you will follow the probability of previous incarnations. And so you'll either take a risky, you'll make a decision that plunges you into risk because you're not afraid of risk, or you're completely trusting, which is a bit less likely, or you'll make a decision that frightens you a bit, and this could be right or this could be wrong. But when you leave the little picture and move to the bigger picture, it frees you up because you realize that whichever probability you do, it's like creation is based in oneness. It's holistic. And so in a holistic world, there are no loose ends. There are no blind roads. There are no places that lead nowhere. Every probability, let's just say you've got a map of the world, holistic world, and there is no such thing as dead end roads. And let's call every road a probability. And so if you choose a road that could be a wrong road, the probability is that it will probably meet up with the right road at a certain stage. And the probability is the experience you had finding that road has been to your enormous benefit. And so in the bigger picture, taking the wrong path simply gives you more experience, and is not necessary. There is no wrong. There is no right. We do as we do. It is as it is, and it will be as it will be. And so decision making, you can't get it wrong because there is no right.
I have often found it useful, just for myself in my own process of decision making, to go with those decisions that make me feel slightly uncomfortable, because I'm all about growth. I like growth, and I like pushing myself towards growth. So when I feel that I would rather go with something comfortable, and on the other side I have something that might seem a little riskier, and I see there's some fear or whatever in me getting triggered, I would rather pick that path because I feel it brings me towards growth. Maybe that is a good way to look at decision making. I don't know what's your take on that?
Well, that I don't think there's a right or wrong there. That is your choice. I understand it because when I lived in the community, I always made the choices that frightened me the most.
Yeah.
And there were plenty of choices in the community, but I always took them on because I recognized, oh my God, I've got a fear here. And so I would take it on and face it. And you always find out in the end that there was a toothless tiger, and God, how long have I been afraid of that? But that's not everybody's path. But there are other people like you and I prepared to do that way. But there are other people who need more time and rather take the safe path and try to travel as safe a way as possible. And eventually they're going to meet the unsafe path, which they thought was a safe path. So they make the decision that they're convinced is right and keeps them on the safe path. And it was right because it's put them on the unsafe path. And so they're at the point, but it will be at a point when they can deal with it better than they might have done earlier in their life. It's sort of, Carolyn likes her favorite expression, life always gets it right.
Yeah, I like that.
And I like that expression. Yeah. I mean, you might look at it and think that's crazy. Just what happened yesterday. But life always gets it right. That doesn't mean we're going to enjoy it or agree with what's happening, but life always gets it right. And we are life.
What happened yesterday? Did I miss anything?
Yesterday? Why?
Oh, that was just a general. Okay, yeah, gotcha. Because you said what happened yesterday, just like what happened yesterday.
No, I mean as a generalization.
As a general, yeah.
Yeah.
So there is no right and wrong decision. There are, I mean, looking back at the decisions that I've made in my life, all I can see is probably the way that you would describe it, different paths of probabilities. Like if you look at relationships, the most important decisions, relationships, jobs, places to live, maybe friendships, these kind of things. There's certainly like different probabilities that could have played out if decisions were made differently. But I feel there is no right and wrong. But also there, like for some people, there's regret, right? So you look back at something, for example, let's take a job. So you had a job, and then for some reason you decided to leave that job, and then you're now in a different job, but then you realize, oh my God, that job was so much better, but now it's gone. So people regret that decision, having left that job, or the same with a relationship, or the same with whatever. So in that sense, in that moment for them, there is a right and wrong. They feel like, oh my God, I made the wrong decision. And they get all hung up in that, oh my God, I took the wrong decision. Oh.
Yeah, but those people who believe you're born and you die at the end of your life, yes, it's a small picture. And yes, absolutely, there are right and wrong decisions. But in the big picture, they don't exist. Like, for instance, when I moved from New South Wales to Queensland, I'm pretty aware that whether in Highland or wherever you are in Australia, that we have huge wildfires and we have huge floods. And so I would look at them and say, okay, I'm not going to look for a place that can't flood or can't burn, but I prefer elevation. And so I looked for a place, and I'm on a small mountain ridge. So if I got flooded out, I don't need to have insurance because there's nobody really left to pay me. And so, but on the other hand, there is a fire risk. So you can't avoid both. So you make a choice. You make a decision. And I personally, like with fire, I feel that, to give an example, with a flood, it's almost unstoppable. It comes across. Well, you'd say a fire is like that. And yet there are places that have been blessed, like a house and a whole row of other houses. It's been blessed by a priest, a Buddhist priest. And the fire comes through and it takes 20 houses out. That one is left untouched. Now, it's unlikely that a flood would do that, but a fire would just go round. So I decided I would live where the fire risk was rather than the flood risk, and that I would make friends with fire. That's me. And so when the fire season comes, I set up what I call a sphere of influence that encompasses the whole property that I live on and a few others in it. And the spirit of serendipity, as I call it, of the mountain ridge, sort of we have a good relationship, and so it's going to fire can be parted. Now that's my decision, and somebody else would say, "God, man, you're mad. There's no such thing as that." And so decision making depends a lot on your state of consciousness. But
Right.
I would rather make a decision not from. I would say any decision made from fear is going to bite your bum.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess that's a
I would
great
never
that's a great
make
point.
I would not make any decision out of fear. I would be logical. Yes, you can make logical decisions, but in the end, it's a nice thing to make a decision and then empower it by trusting your decision, trusting you. And that creates, you're the creator. In every moment of your life, you are creating the content and direction of every moment of your life. So it's not like you make a decision, okay, it's out of my hands now. You're still a creator. And so if you make a decision and you follow on with the energy of making the decision and you live your life, this is my decision, this is what I'm going to do, and if it's out of my hands, I trust. It will be the right decision every time. Even if you chose two opposites, it will be the right decision because you're in life and you're creating. But decisions that you make and then, oh God, now I've got to live it, the attitude is wrong and the results will not be so good. So decision making, the outcome is always dependent on the state of consciousness of the decision maker. And yet it will always come to our benefit because ultimately everything does. Although I would not want to argue that one in a public forum. But in the big picture, it always comes to our benefit. In the small picture, I've ended many incarnations under torture and executed. And that left me, um, as I told you, with a certain fear. And yet, when I finally faced that fear and looked at it, the timing was perfect, and I trust everything about it. And you think, well, if you trust it, why didn't you know that earlier? And then we're back to the chicken and the egg and the timing of the hatching of the egg. And everything comes perfectly if you trust that. But if you don't trust it, then if you don't trust yourself or life, you create a world where the timing is not perfect for you until you reach the point of timing where it is perfect, and then it changes. But to get there, there is a process, and the process is perfect.
Also, I agree with everything you say. Also, I think there is a religious imprint that many of us carry with them, uh, that brings along the burden of right and wrong decisions in the eye of God, you know. And so people feel that, at least that's the way uh, I experience it in many conversations. Um, when you are, let's say you have a decision to make that kind of seems important to you, um, and you really want to, like everyone, you really want to make the right decision in that moment. You're almost afraid if you make that wrong decision, what happens? And then guilt comes along, and that guilt is often based in some religious, superstitious, deep imprint in us.
Yeah, I mean, some people are so superstitious it determines many of their decisions in life.
Oh
And
yeah.
I find that pretty amazing.
Oh yeah.
I find that pretty amazing. But yes, that's a nice term, religious imprint. That's definitely there. I think it definitely affected the way my father made decisions, that religious imprint. But then you get the degree where you get a religious zealot and then slightly religious
Or
until
also,
it's not there at all.
or
Like
also to this, sorry,
I'm not there at all.
Or also to the same extent, I guess that would be true for parental imprints, or people who are very close to you, and suddenly you have an inner um, feeling of, okay, what are they going to say if I made this decision? And even though maybe your parents are not alive anymore, a lot of people carry their imaginary father or mother with them internally, judging their decisions. So that's an interesting component too when it comes to decision
right
making.
through, right through their lives.
Yep.
I think my brother has that still in his late 80s, but that'll never leave him. I never had that. In fact, at one stage, what would my father do? And I did the opposite. But that was in my rebellious years. That's all gone. I never really carried those things.
So what is a good way
I've
to look
often
at
looked at,
decisions? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I would say, to look at decisions, make a decision, trust yourself. That's the simple way. Make a decision in common sense decision. You don't have to be logical, but just sheer common sense, which I'm afraid that could be tricky because it's no longer common. Sense and sensibility are now becoming extremely rare.
That's long
Aldi
gone.
don't sell them. And, most supermarkets are sold out, and it's no good going to the government and asking them. They have no sense or sensibility. And so you have to probably look down in the garden among the in the garden, you'll perhaps find a bit of sense and sensibility. So, in other words, make a common sense decision and trust you, not your decision, trust you that it will all work out perfectly. The trust, you see, this is what people don't get. If you make a decision and you don't trust yourself, then the decision as you made it will unfold exactly, and it will show you the errors of your decision making. If you made the same decision and you fully trust yourself, that trust will reshape your life, and that decision will work out perfectly for you because trust reshapes your life. But people think life is cut and dried and we go through it. And even though I said it probably, and I'm sure eventually I'm going to reach 1,000 times on here, in every moment of your life, you are creating the content and direction of every moment of your life, which means completely and absolutely you are the creator of your life. People hear that and it's in their brain and they've got information, but they still don't get it. They still, life is something cut and dried, and I'm in it, and I've got to handle it the best I can. This thing called life that is moving along, and I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do. People just don't get it that they're the creator of it. And when you do, hey, life's suddenly easy. It's relaxed. You've got freedom. You look at decisions and you feel, if my decision, and this is what I would advise, does this decision honor me? And if it honors you, it's the right decision. It's the best you can make.
Can you
Because if it
elaborate?
honors you, if it honors you, it will honor everybody in your life,
Can
even
you
though they might not all like it.
can you elaborate on what honoring you means in your terms?
Honor means, that's an interesting question. I sort of accept the word without really thinking about it.
That's why we do these
Honor
things.
means to see yourself as a divine being and to honor the divine through honoring yourself. So you make a decision that you feel would be in alignment with God or the divine or love or truth. You make a decision that way. Therefore, if it honors the highest, it will honor you. And to honor means that it pays full respect and full due to the creator, shall we say. And in this case, you are the creator anyway.
Since we have a couple more
Is that a good
minutes,
enough answer for you?
That is a perfectly beautiful answer. We have a couple more minutes, so why not go through a couple of real life examples? I'm trying to come up with some. Let's say you're in a job and you're thinking about leaving that job for whatever reason. Um, how would you be able to determine whether the job change honors you or staying in that job
Let,
honors you?
let's just take that question a slightly different way. You're in a job and the job honors you, then you have a good job if the job honors you. If you have a job and the boss does not honor you and the job does not honor you, you can be very clear that you do not honor yourself. For you, it's security is worth more than honoring yourself. So if you're in that job, you need to leave it. That is the right decision. To take a job where the boss honors you, the overall system honors you, and you can honor yourself, and you feel at the end of the day, this is an honorable situation I'm in. Then you're in a situation where you will grow. And as you honor yourself, so you honor life. And if you honor life, life will honor you. So you don't have to make a decision, you stay with it. But if the job does not honor you, then the decision to leave is the right one. But you don't just jump in the next offer of security, you get a bit more selective. Not how much money can I get, not all that, but does this honor me? Does this meet me at the higher levels and help me raise myself to the higher levels of how I can express rather than some of the low and fear moderated levels of my expressions so far in life. Not looking at this right or wrong or critically, but to see if a job helps you to lift yourself in consciousness, wow, you've got a good job and that job honors you and you can honor the job and the people involved. But if it doesn't honor you at all, then and you stay with it, then you are lowering your own consciousness. Pretty well everything in life is raising or lowering your consciousness. But it isn't out there that's doing it to you. It is you that are doing it to yourself because you're the creator. So decision making is not based in right and wrong, should I or shouldn't I. Just ask yourself, any decision you make, does this honor me? Take it from there.
Let's get into another example because we have a couple more minutes still. How about human relations, whether it's a relationship or a friendship or a family situation? Let's say you are in a relation with another human being, and that relationship with that human being is somehow troubled by an argument or whatever it may be in whatever context. And then you're faced with, okay, how am I going to deal with that? How do you ask yourself the question, does this or that path honor me in the context of human relationships?
I think in that context, honor comes right to the top. Honor in this relationship, does it honor the other person? Does it honor you? You know, there might be an enormous amount of dishonesty in it. Like some people separate and then from a marriage, and then they're almost ready to get married again to somebody else. And the other person says, "Are you married?" "Well, we're separated." And that's all they want to hear. But the simple fact is they can't marry that person. There's a dishonesty in it. And whereas they would be far more honorable in any such situation like that, to be clear and upfront what your situation is, and certainly with your intent to change it. I will do this, I will do that. But if you always look for the path of honoring you and another person in the situation, even divorce doesn't have to be a nasty affair. Even that can be managed amicably, which is in fact far more valuable than anybody realizes. I would like that to be one of our subjects, separation, divorce, and that area.
Definitely, definitely. So in terms of friendships, let's just say you've had an argument with somebody, which of course is a bad idea in the first place, but might happen. And then um, if you don't want to, or if you don't get an internal response to does that honor me, what are other questions that you could ask yourself? Like, is it about, okay, would I feel better to not have anything to do with that person anymore? Or would I feel better to just talk to that person and become and just say to each other, okay, I'll forgive you for everything you said. I ask you for forgiveness for everything I said, and let's be friends again. Is it about asking yourself, what do I feel better with? Or is it about asking yourself, what is feels true to me? What do you think?
I think you've always got to be true to yourself. I think you've always got to look toward your own integrity. If you violate your integrity, you invariably will violate other people's eventually. If you have no personal ethics, you're best to go and sit in the middle of the desert and keep out of relationships. And keep away from the human race until you can. Okay, I'm joking, but on the other hand, it's relationships that help to develop us. It's relationships that where we develop our personal integrity. It's the relationships where we learn the ethics of life. And so often there are messy relationships, which is a process of learning how to have clean and stable and wonderful relationships. So I don't, once upon a time, I would condemn what I would call a messy, bad relationship. Today, I realize you have to have the messy, bad ones to learn how to do it right. And everybody's, there's a lot of people out there showing us how messy it can get. But they don't learn. If there was a crime in all this, and there isn't, if there was one thing, people are so self-absorbed, they just don't learn. They blame. Oh, that was her fault. That was his fault. It has nothing to do with me. It's always two people, 50-50. If you can learn to accept responsibility for your part in every relationship, you're very quickly going to have wonderful relationships, but you've got to learn to accept your own responsibility in a relationship. And I think some people never learn that. It's always blame.
Right. If I think about the stories that you've told about your relationship with your with one of your sons, what is interesting to me is that sometimes it seems to be honoring yourself to not run after somebody and just respect their space. And in other instances, it seems to be honoring yourself to run after somebody, not running in a negative way, but just to move towards someone and say, look, let's have a chat. So that is interesting. Like there's no one way or the other that means honoring yourself.
I would also add to that, the decision you make doesn't have to be final. I was in such a relationship, and years went by, and after tried to doing a bit of peacemaking at the beginning, I thought, okay, I'm going to leave it. But then there came a time quite recently when I thought, okay, I can be rejected, but I'm going to make another peace offering. And if I'm rejected, so be it. I feel good to do that. And the peace offering was not rejected. It was rebuffed, but I kept pushing through, and suddenly we're finding peace. And yet, a month earlier, I would have said, no, I'm not going to do that. So be spontaneous in the moment and be prepared that a decision you made in the past only refers to the past and not to this now moment.
So I think that is a very important point to add to this whole conversation, that it has to be true, honoring you in the moment.
You need to honor yourself in the moment and not make a decision based in the past, which might have been appropriate, because often time is the healer. Just as time takes the sting out the wound when you lose a loved one, to transition. So often time takes the sting out of the wound of two people who hurt each other. And with that, when that wound is healed, then it's okay, let's look at this again. Let's revisit this. And always remember, if you're in such a situation, you can only build it from the moving into the future, not picking over the scabs of the old wounds of the past. That's a big no-no. And so if you decided, okay, I'm going to have this out all over again, bad decision. You're back at the beginning, bad decision. So decision, like I said, back to common sense. Common sense says, let's move forward, not rehash the past. And so you move forward. But I would say honoring yourself, absolutely, is only in the moment. And what honored you yesterday might not honor you today. And that you have to be aware of and not paint it black, and that's a decision made forever. Decisions can come and go and change and become more malleable rather than black and white.
Okay, Michael, thank you so much for today. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Again, as always, if you are enjoying this conversation, make sure to hit the like button and comment and share it. And looking forward to seeing you in our next session.
We have these conversations that sometimes are a bit odd and strange, but we have these conversations to help you, the listener, to maybe pick out something, yes, that's exactly what I needed. So that in our conversations, you can find a formula for the situation you may be in. So when you listen actively rather than passively.